this is all about ag. So anyway, in the advanced EMT course, which once you become an EMT, it's going to be just one small step up from this. We like to call it an EMT on steroids as opposed to a baby paramedic. We get a little farther in depth into different things. And in this case, this is our anatomy and physiology overview. And what we talk about here is, we're talking about, you like this? I created this myself. Yeah, I get tired of presentations that are just words. You want to stand here and go, okay. Study of structure, morphology of body parts. That's what anatomy is. So as we take, like yesterday in the lab, we actually had cadavers in the lab, and we were able, even though they were missing arms and legs, we had torsos and heads. We were able to crack the chest, open it up, look at lungs, look at the mediastinum and different things, and evaluate it. As opposed to the study of the function of the body parts, which is the physiology. So here's an interesting video that I think you'll like. I really enjoyed it myself. Hopefully it'll fire up right. Yeah, here we go. Except it's going to have one of those commercials. What are you yelling at, man? You going to make?
It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that did. Check this out. This is pretty cool. So, I have a question for you. All right? Cells are, you know, if you start a class and you say, all right, we're going to study cells, and you just get right into doing, you know, okay, cells. How many of you like that video? Did it pique your interest at all? Could you break apart some of what you were seeing? Who picked up on the red blood cells? Right? How about the white blood cells? Did you pick up on those? Which ones were they?
It was the one that like enveloped the whatever it was like that.
The one with the big mouth, it looked like something from an alien movie, and it just ate the invading cell or the bad cell, and it just destroys it internally. How many of you picked up on the neurons? And the dendrites, the neural cells. Those were the ones that looked like the cobweb, where the signals were traveling through them. I never thought I'd find something that actually was bigger than the United States national debt. Okay? But 100 trillion cells in your body. That's a lot of cells, isn't it? And then, what was it? 500 quadrillion chemical reactions a second. I can't even think that big. I mean, think about how large that is. So anyway, what's important about this, and you saw birth take place, right? You saw the spermatozoa trying to get their way into that egg. You know, and that in and of itself, you could spend years studying. So when we look at this, we have to kind of start at the basic level and build up. What are we building up to? We're going to build up to you, the human body. So we start with the cells. Now, I'm not going to get into the makeup of everything that goes into a cell, but some of you may already know. What kind of things do you find in a cell? Yeah. Mitochondria. What else are we going to find in there? Reba? No, she's a country western singer. Reba? No. Ribosomes, yes. What else are you going to find in there? Come on. Nucleus, okay? We're going to find any DNA in a cell?
Yeah.
RNA in a cell? Yeah, we're going to find a lot of stuff in this microscopic thing that can fit on the head of a pin and not even take up any space. So we start with this and the cell and everything that within it. Now, here's the basic question. It's typically a 4th grade question. Do human cells have a wall or a membrane? What do you think? Membrane, right. What has cellular walls? Plants, right, absolutely. So cells then, what they do is they form tissue. And the tissue we can have connective tissue. That one's for Leland. Where are we going to find connective tissue? Think about where you're going next week.
Wait.
Okay, I'm not going anywhere.
Just like, isn't it muscle, but like muscle?
Well, you have muscle tissue, right? But connective tissue is kind of holding everything together, isn't it? And please, keep everything connected next week, scan. We have our epithelial cells. What are they? Okay. Go ahead. Who said it? I can't hear you, little Cahill.
Skin cells.
All right, skin cells. Thank you. Then our nervous tissue. Now, so we have our cells, then we have our tissues. What's next? Inquiring minds want to know. We move to organs, because now we take these cells, the tissues, and then we create organs. Next. And we've got a whole bunch of them, right? Anybody in here right now, I should be able to point to one and go, McKenna, what's that?
The lungs.
The lungs. Cool. Katie, what's this?
Stomach.
Cool, you've been filling it this morning, although very slowly. All right. Ethan.
Liver.
And onions, it's delicious. Okay? Anybody want to take a guess on this one? That's kidneys. All right, so anyway, you get the idea. You can't see them? Sorry.
No, it's all over my
All right. So what we have is we have the kidneys, we have the...
Gallbladder. No, bladder.
No, bladder. Bladder. Yeah. That's fine. Very hot. Good job. Over here, Vinny, I'll give you this one.
Brain.
There you go. Heart.
Bicep. It's got a point. Bicep.
Pointing to a muscle, right? The room's full of you.
The
Female reproductive system. We'll generalize it, except for you two. This is the female reproductive system. And then finally, skeletal, right? So these all form organ systems. You okay, QT? You want a drink? Okay. Over there choking. Now we get the organ systems and we group these organs so that they act together. They do a specific job, all right? But they do it in a group, don't they? For example, we're looking here, we've got the liver and gallbladder, stomach, small intestines. Down here hanging off, you can't see, is that useless thing called the appendix. And when we look at this, we talk about our gastrointestinal system. We have other systems as well, don't we? Certainly we do. But all these systems come together to form the most complex level, which is us, the human organism. That's right, you're an organism. I'm still getting yelled at because I call a baby is nothing more than a parasite, okay? But it feeds off a host, doesn't it? All right, look it up. And when we look at this, we're looking at different things. So, for example, what we're seeing here is you're seeing the lymphatic system, the neural system, you're seeing the skeletal system, and finally the integumentary. I'm not going to get into cellular respiration. We've done that already. Now, characteristics of life in the human body. Well, what does our body do? We should have an idea. It's your body. What your body does is it's responsible for movement. What's another name for movement? It's more medical related. What do we call it? The ability to do this.
Wait.
How about it's something that a choo-choo does? Your train, the Polar Express. What's the engine responsible for? Locomotion. Locomotion. That process of us. Please tell me, has everybody in here watched the Polar Express?
Yes.
Wait,
No?
you've never seen the full?
Oh, dude, rent it. It's worth it.
It's free right now.
It's free on demand.
Yeah, free on demand. There you go. Responsiveness, growth, reproduction. These are in no specific order, by the way. I don't want you to get any ideas, Respiration, digestion, absorption, circulation, assimilation. Now, there's one you don't hear of. How is it that the characteristics of life is assimilation? What is assimilation? Can anybody tell me what it means to assimilate? Anybody in here ever watch Star Trek? The Board? Okay. All right. Please.
It's like when you kind of, like if someone came to this country and they started assimilating, they would start acting like the people in this country.
Right. We see it. You know where we normally see it? How many of you have ever lived in the South? Anybody ever lived in the South? Anybody planning on moving to the South someday? Yeah, yes, right. You're going to Alabama. Well, when you get down there to Alabama, you start talking for me. Because your accent starts to change. You start to assimilate to how things are done. I told you, I've had the opportunity to live in all four corners of the United States. From San Diego to Pensacola to Washington State, and obviously here in Pennsylvania. And everything is different. We assimilate. They're not as fast in the South. Everybody takes their time. Nobody rushes around. Go to California, and oh my God, it's like life on hyperspeed. Okay? Just watch I-5 trying to get through LA. But our bodies assimilate. We assimilate in our bodies, and then, of course, after eating all this food, some of you are going to have to excrete some of it, I'm sure. But you don't really, right? Because how long does it typically take from the time I take a cookie and I eat part of this cookie till it's finally going to work its way through my body? How long do you think? An hour and a half?
24 hours.
Yeah, you're right, Caroline. About 24 hours. Dude.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Now, depending on what's going on with the body, maybe it would push through real quick, but for the most part, it doesn't. So then we have maintenance of life. How do we maintain our life? We need nutrients, oxygen, water, heat, pressure. It's kind of interesting to note this, and I'll give you a specific example of how your life will change if you're pregnant, not you two, okay? But blood volume will increase, blood pressure will go up, right? Yeah. Why does it stop? It's still green. Does that mean it's still recording?
I think it just goes to sleep, but like it's still like off.
Okay, well, it could be. Let me just check. I can always cut this out. Oh yeah, it's still going. All right. I'm gonna have to definitely get that. So, what we've got going on here is when we look at the nutrients, everything we take into our body and we digest and what we need and what we don't need, right? We excrete what we don't need. Potassium, carbs, fatty acids. Then we get calcium, chloride, potassium, magnesium, and phosphorus. And this all leads us to live in that state of what? Starts with the H. Go ahead. Go ahead. Homeostasis. We want to live in a homeostatic state where we have a pH of 7.35 to 7.45. It's in neutral. If our pH balance drops, we become what? Go ahead, dude. Acidic. If our pH balance goes high, we become basic or alkalytic, more alkaline. So we've got to have buffers in our system all the time to keep us in that homeostatic state. Understanding that when we're sick or other things are affecting us, that'll change, and it's not good to change. It's a very small scale that we can balance on. Oxygen, you guys should know this one pretty well already, right? When we're looking at our SpO2 level, 95% or higher is normal. Anything that's 90%, if you get an SpO2 about 90% or a little less, that's supplemental oxygen. We're starting to get a little hypoxic there. But definitely anything less than 80 is severe hypoxemia. Not conducive to life. Do you remember I mentioned it a while ago, ROME? R-O-M-E. Do you remember that acronym? Respiratory opposite, metabolic equal. What I'm talking about there is acidosis and alkalosis. So how our body is going to deal with different things. You guys most probably know this. Our body weight is 60 to 75% water. That's pretty heavy. And then what does it do? It's a solvent and transportation system, right? Because water is what? Universal what? Solvent. It's universal solvent. Dehydration, though, here's an interesting factoid. Dehydration for you, loss of 1% of your body weight in fluid can cause dehydration. We also know that as what kind of shock? Go ahead, Anna. Hypovolemic shock. So imagine that. We can start going into shock with just 1% loss of fluid in our body. Does it make sense to you real quick why somebody that's suffering from severe vomiting or diarrhea goes into shock pretty quick? We lose a lot of fluid that way, don't we? Or imagine the person that's out running in the middle of the summer and they're sweating profusely, but they're not drinking any nutrition in, whether it be Gatorade or just plain water. We can go into shock. And look at this, thirst will occur with a loss of 0.8 to 2% of body weight fluid. Your body knows you need to drink. What water, okay? Water. Not one of your cup flipping games. All right? Heat. We generate heat. What process is it that generates heat? Go all the way back to what I talked about a long time ago. How do we generate heat in the body? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Cellular respiration.
Krebs cycle stuff, right? The byproduct is heat. And that, yes, goes to cellular respiration. Surprisingly enough, but here's another factoid to throw out there at you. So let's go back to the pregnant female again. Do you think a female that's pregnant has a higher than normal temperature? Yes or no?
Yeah.
No. Well, let me explain why. Hey, you had a 50-50 shot, like your exam yesterday. You know, you guess. Now, No, seriously. The baby generates heat, right? The baby's generating heat as it grows, and it's 98.6. The mother's temperature is 98.6. They negate each other. It's not like one compounds on the other. All right? So something important to keep in mind. And finally, pressure. Well, pressure is important, right, for breathing. We've recently discussed that with pneumothorax and tension pneumothorax or simple pneumothorax. When we actually start to get air into our chest cavity and we breathe on negative pressure, and now we're allowing pressure to come in and it collapses the lung, right? So we need pressure. But where we also see pressure is the people that are going to elevation. As I mentioned it once before, you go to Mile High Stadium in Denver, 5,280 feet above sea level, and yet you're used to living down here where we're right at sea level or just above it a little bit. Are we going to have a problem breathing initially?
Yeah.
Well, we are if you start to try and exert yourself until we acclimatize to that elevation. Now, hydrostatic pressure in the body is interesting. Hydrostatic pressure in the body has to do with fluid movement in and out of cells, in and out of the bloodstream. We can third space fluid if our hydrostatic pressures are off. And to give you an example, what do we call it when we got the fat ankles? Cankles, right? As we third space fluid in the ankles, that's really caused because of a hydrostatic pressure shift that has to do with sodium, potassium. Okay? So, here you go. Here's the answer everybody was looking for the other day. How many body systems exist in the human body? What was that?
No, 11.
11? Well, let's count, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You were off by 1.
So you want to reproductive, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's 11.
I can't screw you off.
You have to have 2, male and female, right? So what are they? The skin, the integumentary system, the muscular, skeletal, nervous, endocrine, circulatory, lymphatic, respiratory, digestive, urinary, and finally reproductive system. All 11 systems make up the human organism. All those specific cells that create those organs that become part of that system become each one of these organ systems in the body, and it takes all 11 to function. Can we survive without one of these systems? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah? Which one? If you had to pick a system,
Not bad.
Wait, as an individual or species?
no, as an individual,
Reproductive.
reproductive. Thank you, Carol. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, depending on how you did it, urinary somehow.
How would you excrete? How would you excrete anything out of the body in the way of poisonous byproducts that you need to get rid of?
Well, I was thinking like you did at work.
Yeah, now that's different.
Yeah.
But you can live without a reproductive system. As Caroline said, as a species, we wouldn't be here. But as an individual, certainly you can survive without that one system. Everything else, though, do we need our skin? Yeah. Do we need our muscles? Yeah, if we ever want to move. Skeletal, nervous. Now, that's not to say we can't have some of it that's damaged, but we still survive. All right. So when we look at the body cavities, cavities are nothing but space. In the body, we have our cranial, we have our thoracic cavity. We all know what's in there, and it'll even tell you. Diaphragm, we have the differentiation between the thoracic and the abdominal, with the diaphragm being the superior aspect difference. And then we get down here into the pelvic cavity. So we're looking at a few cavities in here. Now we have serous membranes in our body. What does a serous membrane do? What do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
Isn't that like lubricated so that things like for your lungs?
Yes, spot on. It encapsulates and lubricates. And when you look at this, okay, we talk about here our parietal pericardium, our visceral pericardium. We're talking about the visceral and parietal pleura around the lungs, allowing the heart to contract systole and diastole without causing friction, and allowing us to breathe in and out without causing pleural rub from the lungs. And then down here, we're looking at parietal and visceral peritoneum around the intestinal tract. Why? Does our intestines move? Do our intestines move?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that called? Do you remember? Peristalsis. That muscle tissue squeezing along your food as it goes from food to churn. You were taught 4 regions, but there's actually 9. You can take your 4 regions and break it down more. You can break it down to the right hypochondriatic region, epigastric, left hypochondriatic, right and left lumbar lateral, the umbilical region, and then finally our right and left iliac inguinal region and a hypogastric region. Now, here becomes part of the problem, and that is terminology, medical terminology. What is chondriatic? Chondriatic. Does anybody know what that translates into? Yeah, no, they're not hypochondriacs. Bone. Cardia is what? When I say cardia? Heart, right? So chondriatic is bone. And why is that the case? Because look what that region is, the ribs. Pulse points. In the body, a pulse point, anywhere you can feel a pulse, typically is going to be anywhere where an artery covers a bone, all right? So we've got them all over. Things you have to be aware of, especially when doing your pulse motor sensory on your physical exams, is we already know about the radial pulse and the ulnar pulse, right? We know where the brachial pulse is. That's important because of CPR with infants and children, right? Or infants. Down here in the legs, behind your knees, you actually have the popliteal pulse. And then on your foot, you can check the dorsalis pedis, which is on the top of the foot, or posterior tibial pedis, which is the back of your ankle. That's important in pulse motor sensory to make sure that we're having good flow through that area of the body. Now, topographical anatomy, you guys should have this aced, but I'm just going to go over it real quick. When we talk about anatomic positions and directional terms, you remember when I showed you the video? Making biology fun. You remember Leslie? The guy with the really cool accent, you know? All right, so when we start here, this is our anatomical position. The human body with palms out. This is the anatomical position. Supine, prone, is this sounding familiar? Right lateral recumbent, left lateral recumbent, Fowler's, Trendelenburg. Trendelenburg's one that notice where the feet are slightly elevated above the head. There's one missing here too. Give me one that you think is missing. Semi-Fowler's, right. Fowler's is 90, semi is 45, so good pick. All right, all right, well, we watched this video previously. And then we get into medical terminology, which is a whole different class. I would say at this point, with medical terminology, we're focused on word roots, prefix, and suffixes. We've gone over that way back in the beginning. And by the way, don't forget it. Because as we start to go past trauma, and we start to get into the last few lectures of the program, we're going to be getting into needing to remember these word roots as we start to describe stuff. So cardio is what? Or gastric? Intestines, stomach, chondriatic, Balloons. See, now you got it. And then we have these quadrants. A handout for you guys would be to label everything that's getting pointed to. All right? Do you think you could do it? Benny's sitting there going, no way. I think you could. You'd be surprised. I'll bet you could get 80% of all this, if not more. All right. Now, as is the case with any lecture, does anybody have any questions about this A&P? All right. Then let me throw this at you. That video you watched at the beginning is right off of YouTube. And in this lecture, and available in the handouts, are links to where you can find reference points. Credit is given to everything that's used outside of this program, even the software program called Atom, and then different locations for everything, the virus, video, and that's it. Any questions again, final? All right, give me a second.
What? You guys?